It's a delight to come your way this moment with the Role Model Dialogue exclusively on Truth TV. My name is Samuel Ajiman Prempe, and I bring to you the show that presents distinguished African personalities whose contributions in the country, on the continent, and beyond are worthy of emulation. So, you have the remarkable pleasure from the comfort of your location to engage persons who, as it were, can serve as mentors and role models to your life and business. On the show today, I have one fine gentleman who has blazed a trajectory in Ghana as an expert in the field of leadership and HR. Today, we'll be delving more in his life and to set into perspective his focus on leadership. Welcome, Dr. Jeff Bassey.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you.
Glad to be here.
Doc, I have heard your name for so many years before I had the privilege of meeting you in person, and your name echoes on the arena of leadership. Why would people call Dr. Jeff Bassey and connect him to leadership and or HR?
Well, I think life is all about purpose, and if you discover yours, you do the rest of the world a lot of good if you decide to focus on what your purpose is. And I always say that you make your impact where you decide to keep your focus. Now, I haven't realized where my passion is and what I think the problems there are in our part of the world that I can also contribute my quota to. I thought that leadership is fundamental to a lot of things that happen to our continent, a lot of things that happen to careers in the light of business organizations, religious organizations, and what have you. And so I simply thought that I could also add my bit, why I think that my maker had brought me to the world, to add my bit to the more that a lot of great other guys are doing.
Intriguing. So did you study leadership, or you are practicing based on your own experience and learning that you've developed yourself?
I must say that I did not study leadership as in academic certificate or degree. All of my academic certificates are in the areas of business management, administration, and what have you. Much as you would find leadership bit and pieces, and I had special interest in it. But I've come to realize that leadership is more practical than anything put in a book that we would study by way of getting certificates in. And you try to understudy the great leaders in our world. I think John Maxwell have been adjudged as the #1 brain. But I took special interest in corporate leadership because I thought that too many of our managers are training very hardcore management with little or no leadership. And the resultant effect of that is that we see many of our companies being overmanaged and underled. And having sat under the tutelage of the likes of Professor Stephen Adair and what have you, naturally it came to me to do more of my research in matters of leadership. And I can actually say that I have been honored with an honorary doctorate in leadership.
Remarkable.
Because of my special interest and the contribution we try to make to humanity.
Intriguing. Dr. Jeff Bassey has already started causing chaos in my discussion, having mentioned John Maxwell and Professor Adair, and talking of being overmanaged and underled. There's a lot that we are going to discuss today. I think it was John Maxwell who said everything rises and falls on leadership.
Precisely.
What does he mean by that?
Right, that in an organization, it is only what happens at the level of leadership that trickles down and affect everything else within the organization. So I would normally say that if in a company something good happens, it's because of leadership. And if nothing good happens, it's because of leadership. So leaders can never be alienated from the consequences of anything that happens in the organization. And I want to believe that it is on that premise he would argue that everything rises and falls on leadership. Because much as leadership is cause, everything else is but an effect to the cause of leadership. Right.
You've quoted Professor Adair right now.
Let's go.
Okay. So is that supposed to say that followers don't have a role to play in the organization they find themselves in?
They obviously do. One of the key areas of corporate leadership I've focused on lately is that leadership is not about position. And so that you may have someone down there who is not in position of authority to take decisions and apply resources, but can cause the influence, can cause the initiative. Now, leadership starts when we disagree with the results. And the moment we disagree with the result and refuse what the status quo says and kick in measures to challenge the processes and change what the result will look like, leadership begins to manifest. Now, whether it is the leader of the department or of the organization or of whatever setting we are discussing, or it is the cleaner down there that caused this influence by way of disagreeing with the result and causing everybody to believe that there could be a better result and other ways of doing it and taking the initiative and influencing everybody else, that will be leadership. You see, I think that we have variously mistaken what leadership is not, in our present dispensation. For instance, leadership is usually attributed to position. No, position is a myth, it's a fallacy in leadership. You can so occupy the position, and let me say that I'm not demonizing occupancy of the position or undermining it, but occupancy of the position gives you access to leadership, but in itself is not leadership. It gives you the authority to apply resources, to take decisions, to exercise authority, and to direct the actions and inactions of other persons, all right? But position in itself is a myth. It's not leadership. Now, I was SRC president in the university.
Okay, which school was that?
Central University, 2004, 2005. Now, much as all I needed to be sure I was the president was for people to call me Presido. I was enjoying the position, the title, but nothing really was changing in the lives of the students. It took me years after school to realize that I was nowhere close leadership. I was only occupying the position. And guess the caliber of people who move into public offices, district chief executives, members of parliament, ministers of state, and what have you. They are the guys who play ball as SRC officials in schools. So I tell myself that unless there is a shift in the person's thought processes, a paradigm shift, all right, otherwise it is the same ideology with which we will go into public offices and occupy positions and mistake the occupancy of the positions for leadership. It is a mere myth and a fallacy of leadership.
You're watching the Role Model Dialogue. My guest is Dr. Jeff Bassey. We are discussing in perspective leadership, and he's just started talking about the idea of being voted into a role, an office, or occupying a role, and the idea of functioning effectively as a leader. We want to move closely into the area of management in an organization. How does management in any company differ from the leadership of the organization?
Very well. Truth is that one cannot do without the other. The unfortunate thing is that we overemphasize management to the neglect of leadership. The objective of management is to keep systems running and ensure that day-to-day operations are under control. Now, leadership takes the initiative and ensures that things grow. Now, I dare say that the essence of leadership is change and growth. If nothing is changing and nothing is developing and nothing is improving, leadership becomes a waste of everybody's time. Now, let's cast our mind in retrospect. In 2016, the then candidate Akufo-Addo, who is now our president, His Excellency Akufo-Addo, let's assume that he will come before us in 2016 and his campaign message would sound like, Ghanaians, vote for me and the NPP party, and when we win the reins of power, we will do everything as His Excellency John Mahama and the NDC have been doing. Whether good or bad, we will maintain everything. Now, why should we remove them and bring you if nothing will look different? The essence of leadership is change and growth. So that if you ask me what a key difference there is between management and leadership, I would tell you that whereas management focuses on working in a system, leadership is about working on the system. Leadership is always asking the questions whether there is the best way to do it, whether we cannot alter the processes and improving on the results. So much as leadership is about, management is about probably meticulously climbing the ladder to get to the top of that wall. leaders are always asking, is the ladder leaning against the right wall in the first place? I am quick to liken managers to a thermometer. And now a thermometer measures the temperature of an object or an environment and just gives a mere report. And liken leaders to thermostats who regulate the environment. What am I trying to say? Managers like to complain. The economy is not good. Our systems are not working. Customers are not coming. For Christ's sake, the reason you are there is to solve the problems. Otherwise, everybody else can do it. All right. So what makes a leader different is identification of the issues and preferring the solutions and making sure that you alter them. So much as management is about working in a system, leadership is always about working on the system, causing the necessary changes that will deliver results on the table.
This is almost like a leadership class. So it is your 1 hour MBA in leadership. Interesting. So management is working in a system and leadership is more on working on the system. It's intriguing here on the role model dialogue as Dr. Jeff is educating us on the subject of leadership. You would get to know how you can be more helpful and impactful in any organization you find yourself in. You can apply leadership in your family, in your home, in your setup, and make it more effective in whatever you do. Doc, when we talk about a leader, what picture do you see?
Right. Let me say that normally when you are teaching leadership to corporate leaders or office managers, we tend to think that we are referring to a manager who must be different from who a leader is. No. I'm talking about that one person who have the ability to combine the soft art of leadership with the hard skill of management.
So not to say that we should have a leader in the office and a manager in the office.
No, the same one person must be able to marshal leadership skills vis-a-vis managerial skills. Now, if you ask me what I think the definition of leadership is, because I normally like to pick it from there to connect it to that office manager. I think that leadership involves influence. Leadership involves influence, means it's not coercion. Yeah. Now, when I say influence, leaders influence much more than they think. As a leader, people watch and pick from you. People copy, copiously, consciously, all your conscious and unconscious actions to your ignorance, all right? So leadership happens in the sphere of influence. Now, it occurs amongst people. Now, why do I emphasize that? There's quite a fine difference between leading human beings and leading animals. Now, if you're leading animals to graze and they are going astray, all you need to do, Sam, is to use your stick to hit one. Chances are that all the rest will fall in line. Now, human beings, when you hit one, the rest will scatter some more. What's the difference? Human beings have minds of their own. They think for themselves. They make their own decisions. And the human mind is highly erratic. Now, any leader who doesn't appreciate this fact, that every human being is a whole institution on its own, walking around. So what is the approach? And if we were to have the time to go into details, I would have been walking our listeners through situational leadership. Now, if you are leading people of the X generation, you would adopt different leadership styles as compared to people of the Y generation and today the millennials. Are you tapping into their conscience? Are you doing consultative leadership? Or you are doing the command and control that the traditional generation?
I like this area. We are going to go into it in a few minutes. Role model dialogue, don't go away.
Heritage Christian College, or HCC, is a university college affiliated to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, and we are accredited by the National Accreditation Board, NAB. HCC is a distinctive Christian university in Ghana today. It's a university intentionally set up to provide what I call a missing link in the tertiary education delivery in Ghana and on the continent of Africa.
Unemployment is a huge issue in our country, Ghana, and for that matter, in the whole of Africa. And that is the difference that Heritage seeks to make, helping to have the Ghanaian young people train and give themselves meaningful jobs without having to wait. This is phenomenal, and we are focused on delivering that.
The Center for Entrepreneurship, Philanthropy and Ethics is one of the units of HCC that has decided to help the students to be able to develop their skills in entrepreneurship, help them to be able to write business plans, to employ other people. And then they do all of these things in the context of ethics and giving back to society.
Before you finish HCC, you have your own business. It's a privilege to you because you won't be hunting around looking for a job. You already have your job.
So earlier before on the dialogue, Doc was talking about some generations and some situational aspects of leadership. We want to go straight into that. Which generation do you belong to, and how has the dynamics of leadership affected each of these generations? So Doc, we'll touch on that.
Right. So I'm saying that it's important that organizational leaders know more of their followers. Right. Now, people of the traditional and the X generation tend to be more procedural kind of people. They follow rules and regulations and processes. They tend to have a lot of respect for authority, right? Now, the Y generation, and for that matter, the millennials, are not exactly, cast in stone, rocket science way of doing things kind of people. They are, however, result-driven, and so all they need to do is for the leader to communicate clearly and take everybody along, so that it's expedient. We vary our leadership styles. Now, if I were to be having Y generation and millennials, and they are about the larger chunk of our workforce today, what kind of leadership styles will I be adopting? Not the telling, where we do a lot of instructions and give directives as to what to do, but we'll focus on what we call the selling strategy. Now, the selling strategy is about getting people to understand the reasoning and the factors that are considered before a decision is taken or a directive is given. Now, the Y and the millennial generation guys are the people who focus on the goal. I normally like to use the journey between Legon and Tema. He only needs to know that we need to get to Tema. He's not interested in being told, use the Spintex route from Legon to Tema, or use the beach route, or use the Tema motorway. But he needs to clearly understand, why are we going to Tema? Where are we going first and foremost, which is Tema in this case? Why are we getting to Tema? And when do we need to get to Tema? And then you provide whatever guide to make sure that he's in Tema at the right time. But to select what route for the person, it really doesn't work. Now, I've met a lot of managers. I have done training across a number of organizations, and I've come across supervisors who think that some of these millennials are just recalcitrant people, and you can't really control them and stuff like that.
We are like misfits.
More or less. And then some of them even go to the extent of, terminating appointment. I tell you, if you terminate one millennial and you bring in another, you will face the same situation. Well, why don't we work on the leader to engage, to adopt coaching strategies, performance coaching sessions, rather than the control and the command. I was training for a particular hotel, and when I got to the managers and the supervisors in the housekeeping division, I realized that they spent too much time moving room to room and being on the corridors directing people what to do. Spend time to do performance coaching session, one-on-one. We are not raising our voice there. We are not going there to shout or to blame anybody for any wrongdoing. But we, throw more light on our vision, why we are here as a department, what we would have to do to help the organization to succeed, and what the consequences there will be if we don't achieve our objectives. And then you get a person to himself get commitment to doing the job. I call it, he has to handcuff himself and give you the key and walk out of your office. That is how to lead the present generation of people we have in our workplace, rather than the command and control kind of leadership.
So there's a lot of work that managers and organizations need to do on themselves to function effectively as leaders, to guide the people they are running. So it's not always the time that the employee is at fault. Is that what you're trying to
No, it's not always the time. But even if the employee were to be at fault, that is why you are his leader. You just quoted John Maxwell, everything rises and falls on leadership. I normally tell the story of a particular organization whose specialization is to buy out businesses that are not doing well. Once they buy you out, the first thing they do is to identify the top hierarchy and clear you. And as for the general rank and file workforce, they retrain and reorient your mindset. Probably this lends a lot of credence to John Maxwell's assertion that everything rises and falls on leadership. So let's even assume, without admitting, that all the fault or none of the fault is coming from the workforce or the employees. The leader will ultimately bear the responsibility. Now, I was following a debate from the Harvard Business School on leadership, and there are two schools of thought that were the basis for the debate. Whether if you are a manager and you have to terminate people's appointment for lack of performance, if that does not cut a slur on your own leadership. Because if you're a leader, you definitely want to grow people to acceptable performance.
So if your people are not performing, it's you, not them.
If your people are not performing, then you are to blame for it. And so will a leader be justified? And now, I'm not saying you should never terminate people's appointment. We have punitive offenses and non-punitive offenses. Lack of performance is a non-punitive offense. And the person have been serving under you. How much have you worked on the person to bring the person to an acceptable performance standard before letting the person go? I'm not too sure if everyone will subscribe to this ideology. The likes of Jack Welch, I think he passed on earlier this year, who has been adjudged as the greatest corporate leader the world has seen since 1900 till date, believes that if you are a business leader, you are the chief gardener. And whilst you water the crops, you must also learn to pluck off the weeds. That almost runs counter at this other school of thought. The beauty about leadership is that there are no absolutes. There is nothing sacrosanct. What a leader sees determines what he does. Now, when I hear people make arguments on the concepts as Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. Now, Theory X that argues that managers should not trust workforce to put in a good day's job by themselves. You keep them under strict surveillance, ensure that you either promise them rewards or you threaten them with punishment, otherwise you won't get results from them. And then Theory Y that says that, listen, communicate, create a vision, and make sure that working conditions are good. Leave the guys alone and they'll get a job done. Now, I've been confronted several times with which of these two is the ideal case. And I tell them the management is dynamic. It is not absolute. The situation a manager finds himself may definitely determine which of them to adopt. Now, if I sit here and tell you that a manager has to always be democratic, I tell people, when you see a snake, you kill it. You don't form a committee, all right? By the time you put up a committee to strategize on how to kill the snake, it's gone. But many a time, you have to carry your people along. Leadership is about synchronized thinking, getting everybody to see things through the eye of the leader, so we all know what we are pursuing. When President Nixon, it was under the leadership of President Nixon of America that America sent the first 2 astronauts to the moon, all right? When he arrived at the secretariat preparing the astronauts to go to the moon, he would meet a cleaner and ask the cleaner what the cleaner was doing there. I thought the obvious answer should be, I clean. But the cleaner said, no, Mr. President, I'm helping to put a man to the moon. Now, that is what I call synchronized thinking. The cleaner understands that I'm not just cleaning because I want this floor to look good, but it's because there's an ultimate goal we are achieving. The driver is doing so, having a meaning to his work. The typist is doing so, having a meaning to his work. Otherwise, it just becomes a pro forma. People wake up and they have to go to the office and return, and at the end of every 30-day month, we sign a paycheck for you. Trust me, we may not be able to go far. And leaders who realize and appreciate the importance of everybody's role in the organization probably will be the ones to win. You see, I normally liken these things to a four-tired vehicle. When one tire is punctured or flat, you don't keep driving on the other. So there must be a fit in. It's called synchronicity and congruency. Everybody must play his part for us to arrive where we are going. And if the leader can make everyone else realize this, and he himself will accept himself that I can't do it all alone. Because if you can get a job done all alone, chances are that I tell people that you have a very big, small vision. You understand that? Very big, small vision. Yeah. So big that it can fill your stomach. So small that nobody else will benefit. Because it takes one person to realize a vision. It takes far more than one person for a vision to see the light of day and to grow.
Doc, you're a big man. You said a lot in these few minutes. You've alluded to Martin Luther King on saying that if somebody is called to be a sweeper, they should sweep exceptionally. You've spoken about quite a number of interesting thoughts on the subject of leadership. But I want us to go back to your earlier submission on what leadership is not. You touched on some myth of the idea of occupying a position, and you're trying to make us know that it's not essentially leadership. Which other myth can we consider? Then we can now look at what leadership actually is.
Now, apart from position, which I consider as a myth, I think there are a few other areas that I would say augment leadership, but in themselves might not be leadership. For instance, manager myth. There are people who are great administrators, who are great managers, who are great worshippers of whatever you give them. They can maintain and take good care of it, but they never grow it. I call it the manager myth. Now, these are guys, when they appear, people run helter-skelter. I tell people that if your presence intimidates your employees, you are probably not a leader. Now, whether you are present or not, your presence or otherwise should not alter people's attention to work.
But what am I trying to say? Interestingly, there are some people who they feel their presence is what is supposed to command their leadership. That is what they bask in. Yeah. Are they falling short of something?
Probably. Then I would say that you've been managing yourself and not an organization. If in your presence people will work when there is work to be done, and people can have the boldness to lie idle when there is nothing to be done in spite of your presence, and in your absence people would work when there is work to be done, and in your absence people will lie idle. Once your presence or otherwise is what causes what happens and what doesn't happen, chances are that you've been trying to manage yourself. So being a strong manager is not tantamount to being a good leader. The next other myth is personality myth. In the baby boom generation, we attributed leadership to people's outlook. Yeah. So if you look good, you physique. Yeah. If you look good, you dress well, you command, your personality commands some respect, you have charisma.
Hercules, Odysseus, Schwarzenegger.
Very good.
Yeah.
Then they attribute leadership to you. Yet, I dare say that if a leader looks good, he commands some level of respect. But it only augments leadership. It's not.
Okay.
The next one is the speaker myth. When I say this, a lot of people, yes, communication. Now, every good leader should have the ability to communicate and carry people along. But being able to speak alone doesn't make you a leader. Now, we have seen in various interview sessions where people can talk well, but 6 months on the job, you wonder how you got them onto the job. In HR, we call it PURE. PURE is an acronym, P-U-R-E, previously undetected recruitment error. These are guys who can convince you to the core. Yes, a great communicator augments leadership, but should not be mistaken for leadership. Perhaps the toughest of the five is what I call the SME, the subject matter expert.
Subject matter expert.
Right. That is knowledge myth.
So they are not leaders.
I am knowledgeable in this. No. It doesn't necessarily make you a leader. I'll give you 2 examples. Now, in the baby boom generation, if we're looking for the chairman of the Yam Farmers Association, we will go inspect everybody's yam farm. And naturally, the biggest yam farmers owner becomes the chairman of the Yam Farm Association. He have expert knowledge on, cultivating yam farm. Maybe he has the muscles to weed and expand his farm. But what are the reasons the Yam Farmers Association have been put across? Probably to negotiate. Probably you have to inspire the other group. So this is someone who has technical knowledge. But if he cannot cast vision, if he cannot provide strategic direction, if you can't inspire a group of people and motivate their attention on the accomplishment of the objectives of the Young Farmers Association, it would be a mistake to get that person into the seat
You are
of the...
dialing some numbers, but hold on there. This is a role model dialogue. We are back after this break. Bassey was talking about 5 myths of leadership, and he ended with what he climaxed as SN, situational
subject matter
experts. And he tried to make us understand that there are people who may have knowledge on a particular subject, but that does not necessarily qualify them as leaders. I know probably some people may have a different perspective on this, especially in this time where in the wake of COVID there's the demand for digital experts. Wouldn't a digital expert in an organization be the person trying to lead the front of the organization in this time now?
Not necessarily. Like I mentioned, technical knowledge is not tantamount to leadership knowledge. Now, that is not to say that every technical expert is not a leader. But there have been many situations where organizations just look at technical expertise and mistake people for leaders. And they themselves also mistake themselves for leaders. I mean, PhD in electrical engineering. I am a chartered accountant. I have an MBA in finance. Is that all there is to be the leader of the finance team, what we call the CFO, the Chief Finance Officer? Probably no. Now, am I condemning or demonizing the question of knowledge? No. It augments you. It adds on to you. In fact, knowledge is one of the sources of power of a leader. If a leader shows a lot of key knowledge in an area, you influence other people in that area. But, you know, over time, I mean, a lot of years of research have brought about these 5 myths that have been variously mistaken for leadership. They augment leadership. I am not necessarily condemning them. They add on to you, but they in themselves will not make you a leader.
So what then makes somebody a leader? What attributes can we see in a person to conclude that this person, this organization is exemplifying leadership?
Very good. Now, there is an inexhaustive list of attributes of leaders, all right? I normally would start from leaders are people who inspire shared vision. They inspire shared vision. Now, this is my definition for vision. Capturing the future, registering it on your mind, and using it to drive the present day's actions. Capture the future, register it on your mind, and use that future to drive the present day's actions. Now, so let's say if we're moving from Accra, Ghana to our second biggest city in Ghana, Kumasi, and let's say assume that we're not going by flight or by train or by even our private vehicle, but we're going by commercial vehicle. Chances are when you wake up from bed, the first question that will emanate from your mind is which station in Accra would have vehicles going to Kumasi, because there are several stations. You zero in on, say, Neoplan. The moment you get to Neoplan, you hear various mates shouting various towns. You hear Ho, you hear Takrady, you hear Cape Coast, all manner of cities. But the one that will most possibly catch your attention is the shout of the mate that mentions Kumasi. And that is not an accident or stroke of luck. That is deliberate and intentional because you predefined Kumasi on your mind. Now, when you get on board, By the time you get to Konongo, people will be coming off board. You remain on board. You get to Ejisu, you remain on. You see, when the vision is firm, it provides passion for the journey. You are as tired as everybody else will be. And I dare tell people that if it is a vision, it must have some qualities. It must contradict the present. Of course, that is what makes it a vision. Visions are futuristic. So it may look opposite today, but that is why a vision, that is where we want to go.
Let's take the second attribute.
Right. The second attribute of leadership is that leaders must necessarily challenge processes. Yeah. The Chinese have one important proverb that resonates with me a lot. That if you keep doing the same thing the same way, expecting different results, you are insane. You must change the route to expect a different destination. If you don't change the methodology, you do not expect the results to change. So one key hallmark of a leader is that you must always question the status quo, challenge the processes of the organization. It's also expedient that leaders develop what we call confidence and attitude. What makes a person a leader different from a non-leader is your ability to resolve problems. In the absence of solving problems, we don't need leaders.
In the absence of solving problems, we don't need leaders.
Or let me say, in the absence of problems.
Yeah, there are no problems. We don't need leaders. Yeah.
So you don't go in and start complaining of the problems. Now, like we said, leaders provide guide for.
So you mean
other
people
persons
who get into office and instead of they delivering what is expected of them in the organization, they try to paint the picture of the obvious challenges, the same reason for which we brought them.
Then you are wasting everybody's time. You don't talk about them. All right, so I become amazed
Perhaps
when
they didn't calculate well.
Fair enough. I become amazed when politicians campaign on the premise of finding solution to almost everything. They get to office and suddenly they're like, oh, we didn't know the situation was like this. The economy is broke. You knew the economy was broke at the time you wanted to take over the reins of authority, all right? So now, I'm not sitting here telling you that I have solved every problem around me. But every time, every day, the challenge is that I am only relevant as a leader as much as the problems I'm able to solve. And by doing that, we need leaders to show attitude. Now, what is attitude? Attitude is focusing on your responses rather than the occurrences.
Focusing on your responses.
Rather than the occurrences. Now, let me give you this very simple, basic example. So I advertised a seminar some time ago. And that's a seminar that people would register in advance but will not pay. On the day of the seminar, they walk in, pay at the entrance, and then enter the hall. On the very day of the seminar, rain started falling. And being the resource person, I was home, I had my staff there. The seminar was to take off at 9 a.m. And I thought that getting there 15 minutes ahead of 9, I would be on time. And that my officer would take care of everything. Now, I got there some 10 minutes to 9, only for my staff, some of them to be out there and be lamenting because it was raining. Oh, all this money we spent advertising and it's rained and people are not coming. What are we going to do? So I was like, hey, do we cause the rain to fall? No. Do we control the weather? No. Did you say the people registered in advance and you have their numbers? Take this phone. Call them. Send them messages. Tell them in spite of the rain, we will still run. Now, let's assume that we were expecting 100 participants in that seminar. Yes, we didn't get all the 100. We got about 70. But to prove to my staff what the power of leadership, attitude, and initiative could do to change situations by focusing on our responses, I brought some of them in front of the participant. And I asked the participant, how many of you would not have been here today because of the rain, except for the message you received from us or the call we placed to you? More than half of the people. Wow. That is a classical example of the occurrence is that it is raining. We cannot do anything about it. But what is our reaction? What is our response in spite of the challenge that is going on? And that is a key hallmark of a leader. Focus on your responses and your reactions rather than the occurrences.
Focus on your responses and reactions rather than the occurrence. Let me attempt to see if I understand this subject very carefully. There is a story of Nelson Mandela. It said that he was on the flight and either the flight was coming to capsize or there was an issue, there was turbulence up there. So everybody was scared and he stood up, sat calmly, and after everybody observed him, and they try to manage their cool as well. So I learned after the flight, there was a journalist on board who asked him that, Nelson Mandela, were you not scared of all this turbulence? Were you not afraid of your life? And he said he was actually scared, but for the sake of the people, he had to maintain his composure.
Yeah.
Is this similar to the picture you're trying to paint on?
Precisely so. And to build from his point, if you're a leader, you need to have confidence. Now, whether you have the confidence or not, fake it. So I tell leaders, you must show confidence. Whether you have it or not, look for it. Because followers look up to the leader. And if the leader communicates fear and pessimism, you break the team who do not even have the stamina you, the leader, are supposed to be having. So as a leader, you need to, leadership is infectious and repetitive. Followers will do what they see the leader doing, all right? Coincidentally, I also have a story of being on a flight, and I am not too comfortable when I'm flying, all right? And it's an uneasy camp for me. Now, on this particular day, a young lady who was flying for her first time would ask me at our takeoff point, Kotoka International Airport, what it is like to fly. And I will give her all the lectures, all right? Unfortunately for me, we ran into some bad turbulence, and the announcement will come from the cockpit, and I stretched my neck. She observed it, and she asked me whether I was scared, and I told her no, I wasn't scared. I was scared.
You were scared.
Right? But if you're a leader, you need to learn how to conceal and stomach fear and act confidently.
Intriguing.
Now, nobody is saying you don't have a right to be afraid, but manage your fear. Don't expose it to other people. Now, does that make you too weak? No. I'm not saying that you don't admit your mistakes as a leader, but people are looking up to you. So at that point in time, I told the lady that this wasn't any precarious situation. It was
you were scared yourself.
Because I was scared. We're going to go through, and in a few minutes time, we're going to land. Now, I saw a huge sigh of relief in this young lady.
Managed the situation,
and she was calm.
Calmed her down.
She had put all of her confidence in me. The question is, was I the one flying the plane?
You are not a pilot.
No, but I spoke to her. And lo and behold, nothing happened. And by the way, no turbulence has ever brought down any aircraft. Turbulence do not bring down plane crash. The worst you do is to cause inconvenience to the passengers on board, or damage the plane in one way or
I'm
another.
intrigued about this story of yours, because I recall in about 2011, I went to Kakum, and that was my first time on the canopy walkway. Doc, I was scared on this canopy walkway. When we took the first, it's in about 6 or 7 staircases to the front in that direction, then there are 2 that go. So when you take the first 2, you are told that you can go to the left if you don't have the confidence to continue. When we went on the second bridge, I was very scared. I had told myself that, man, when we get to the second, I'll just take my exit and relax. All of a sudden, I saw a lady behind me, scared, screaming, "Are we going to be okay? Are we going to be okay?" I said, "Oh, relax, we'll be fine.
Good.
Just 5 more ahead.
That is
just
leadership.
5 more bridges."
That is leadership.
So I held her on, and we moved on. We took the third one. She was still scared. I said, "Oh, relax. We just have some 4 more to go." Doc, I was shaking.
Yeah.
You
see,
but
Sam,
just by giving her the picture of
intentional.
confidence, we were able to go.
Leadership is intentional and deliberate. I don't expect a manager in the office when things are not going well, sales is weak, revenue stream is not good, we are recording losses, to put his team together and start wondering before the team, well, folks, I don't know why people are not buying. Our account is not getting open. We can't get revenue. We don't know what to do. You don't do that in front of your team members. Now, am I saying walk to the meeting and not accept the fact on the ground? They are also aware. Tell them, folks, good morning. Intentional and deliberate. Good morning. Our sales is weak. Account is not getting open. But all we need to do is to change a few strategies and we will bounce back. So this is what we are going to do and all of that. Now, the first scenario I painted communicate hopelessness, pessimism. We are confused. We don't know what we are about. As a matter of fact, if you get a new job, you can leave. That's what he just told them. The second one says there is a challenge, but relax. We are in control. You see, the mind is divided into 2. We have what we call the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The moment you accept defeat from the word go, it's like sending a quick SMS from your conscious to the subconscious mind. I go to bed, I've accepted nothing can be done about this situation. But if you say we will give it a try, we will see what to do, you set your mind in motion to start looking for answers. Barack Obama said there are 2 things involved in an election, win or lose. Now, if you don't contest, you've lost already. So contest. Now, if you contest and in the event you win, you are happy. If you lose, you learn the lessons and know how to avoid and how to specialize on your next attempt. So leaders don't communicate fear. You have every reason to be afraid, I agree. Hide it in your heart, otherwise you're not qualified to be a leader. Conceal the fear and exhibit confidence as though all was good.
Conceal the fear, exhibit confidence as though all was good. We are the Amisa Hotel Laboni, and this is a role model dialogue on Truth TV. My guest is Dr. Bassey, and we round up in the next 5 minutes as we try to run us through the picture of what leadership is. We've touched on some two amazing ones, but the depth with which we went, we can feel a full textbook for you. So, Doc, let's go.
Right. I think that the responsibility lies on leaders to whip up enthusiasm in people. Leaders don't get a job done all by themselves. There's a sleeping lion in every human being. Every human being have certain innate abilities, but more often than not, they themselves may not know. And the moment you occupy the position of the leader, it will be your responsibility to wake, for want of a composite expression, to wake these sleeping lions inside of these people in a bid to equipping them to getting results for the organization. Leadership is a Herculean task, but at the same time, it is a privilege and not a right. So when you are in the position, you learn to carry other people along the journey. All right. Now, I dare say that the only way or the best way to measure the effectiveness of a system is the result it produces.
The best way to
Measure the effectiveness of a system is the result it produces.
I'd like to interrupt you here and quickly ask which people have impacted you as your leadership journey? Which people have been your mentors or leaders?
Right. I have been immensely impacted because my area of focus is corporate or business leadership. How come I tend to do training for a lot of corporate managers rather than maybe political or religious leaders? My greatest influencers have been Jack Welch, Dr. Jack Welch of blessed memory, the likes of Steve Jobs, Professor Adair, because I'm an academic. I thought that I could also have an academic mentor to influence what I do. And then Dr. Mensa Otabil, he has had a lot of impact on me. I mean, he has redefined how things could easily be done. I dare say that through Dr. Mensa Otabil and Central University, we have redefined tertiary education, for instance. Now, those days, you remember, you have to resign or take a long leave, study leave, in order to get a degree. That's right. But he came with evening, weekend. Forget the fact that today every school is doing it. All right. But he pioneered all of those ideas. And these are people whose life I sit back, look at, and thought that I could emulate in one way or another.
Talk of university. How can people get to reach your organization to participate in some of the leadership and professional programs?
Right. We run the professional charter in human resources. I normally say virtually there is no good company in this country whose staff or HR team have not studied and certified with us, from MTN to Barclays Bank to Bank of Ghana to KPMG, Ghana Airport Company, Newmont, all of such people. I think our viewers can visit www.phrglobal.com. PHR Global, Professional in Human Resource, phrglobal.com to read more on how to certify as a chartered human resource professional.
What does it mean to certify as a chartered human resource?
Oh, indeed, certification, professional certification is quite different from academic certificate. Academic degrees give you theoretical foundation, and everybody holds a degree these days. I tell people, no matter how important something is, the moment it becomes common, its significance is gone. Everybody holds a degree. There's a difference between an accountant and a chartered accountant. So I'm not talking about degree in HR. We're talking about chartered certification in human resources. It sets you apart because normally chartered professionals are seen to be to have gone through more rigorous training. They adhere to professional ethics and standards. They are better placed for international assignment because these are global certification. And most successful companies in Ghana, I'm not saying there is no indigenous company in Ghana that is not successful, but most successful companies in Ghana tend to be multinationals, and sometimes they tend to be attracted to this global certification. I think your viewers can also reach us on our hotline, 0244 822 855. 0244 822 855.
Okay, how long is the program?
It's a 6-month course, Saturday lectures only. And then you write the certification exam. On your passing, you are certified as
So
a
for me,
certificate.
without an HR background, am I able to,
Yes, all we need,
HR mainstream in the university, am I able to participate?
all we require is a degree. If you have a first degree, you come for the professional certification in human resource, whether you have an HR background or not. And if you have a master's degree, say MBA, we admit you to the senior certification class.
Okay.
Right.
Doc, you like knowledge, you like learning. As your dad, a professor, did you grow up in a...
My dad is a driver.
Okay.
And my mother is a trader, a mixed trader.
I see.
Right.
Interesting. Where did you grow up?
I was born in a village behind Pando called Kwame Chrome. But at the tender age of 9, my parents had migrated to Tema. So I actually did my growing up in Tema. I grew up in Tema, right? If I may say so, right.
From Pando to Tema, Dr. Jeff Bassey has trained almost every big organization in Ghana and West Africa and beyond that you can think of. His organization specializes in leadership and HR, and today he has explained to us a lot on the function of leadership. You can apply this in your family, in your organization, and if you sit on the board of a multinational, it's highly applicable there. But if I were you, I would like to participate and enroll in the professional program. The website again is
www.phrglobal.com.
So we'll visit the website phrglobal.com and be able to enroll in this professional certification program for 6 months, and we write our exam. This has been the Role Model Dialogue on Truth TV. We've been recording at Alisa Hotel. Thank you so much for joining us. See you same time next week.